So, there's finally a new Superman movie that's out, and I can finally rank all of his movies. But for my ranking, I'm not going to include the two cuts of Justice League or the spin offs like Supergirl and Shaquille O'Neal's Steel. This is just Superman solo movies with the exception of Batman v Superman. So let's get right into it. Coming in at number 9 is the very, very, very first Superman movie, Superman and the Mole Men. Yeah, you guys probably didn't know this existed. Because, you all probably thought Superman the movie in 1978 was the very first comic book movie, or maybe Batman the movie from 1966 was the first superhero movie ever made. No, it was this film right here. This is the very first superhero movie to not be a serial. And it's way shorter than a serial. It's like 58 minutes, not even an hour, but they still release it in theaters. It does not take place in Metropolis at all. There's no Daily Planet. There's no Perry White. There's no Jimmy Olsen. It's just Clark Kent and Lois Lane go to this town that has a disturbance of little mole men going around. This movie kind of like you have to go into it as like, okay, it's a smaller set story, and I do think that the filmmakers are trying to work around that fact that it's a small scale story, and there's like some interesting character stuff. There's a good scene where like just Clark Kent and Lois are just like walking, because just for context, Lois does not know Clark is Superman in this, and this is like a backdoor pilot for the Adventures of Superman show, which I have not seen a single episode of. I don't even know if Lois ever even finds out that Clark is Superman in that show. In which, by the way, this is played by George Reeves, not related to Christopher Reeve as Superman, and I think the actress who plays Lois in this got recast for the show. There are some interesting moments for a movie that takes place in the early 50s. Its depiction of like mob mentality in America. That stuff is interesting, and how Superman deals with it.
Whoever fired that shot came close to killing Miss Lane. Obviously, none of you can be trusted with guns, so I'm going to take them away from you.
That kind of reminds me of something that happens in a later Superman movie.
Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
Overall, it's just I don't want to trash like the cheap effects and all that, because it was a low budget thing. So they had low budget effects. They could only film at like an old western town, so they have very little to work with, and they do their best. Overall, the story is not that captivating enough for me to put it higher. So it's not. I don't think it's terrible. It's just not my thing. It has some interesting moments, and like Superman has some cool scenes, but it's kind of forgettable, to be honest. So I gotta stop dwelling on this one. Number 8, Batman v Superman. So when it comes to this ranking, I need to really focus on like how well the Superman stuff is. And man, the Batman stuff is way better in this, because I think Zack Snyder likes Batman more than Superman, and clearly wants to just make a Dark Knight Returns adaptation instead of just whatever they're trying to do. Look, I've talked about the Snyder films a little too much on this channel, and this is probably going to be the last time I'm touching on them. But it's too much like setup of other movies instead of just basically being Batman fighting Superman. There's not enough of it like to build up to the fight. Like, I don't really think Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne briefly meeting at a party to then have them as Batman and Superman briefly meet up I think there should have been a little more. They should have interacted more leading up to it. Like, none of it felt well earned. And Jesse Eisenberg is just the worst Lex Luthor. Again, Zack Snyder just wants to do a Batman movie, and this is just the Joker. Which, I mean, to be honest, Jesse Eisenberg, I think, would have just fit as the Joker. There's just too many plot holes, too much, like, stupid stuff in it to, like, go into. But again, the Batman stuff is really cool. And I wish that the attention that they gave to Batman would have been stronger with Superman. And it's not good, and Superman apparently doesn't smile at all in this movie. I'm just... Like, there's some stuff I admire. Like, I mean, when you get to the third act, then it's just like a dumb popcorn movie, but everything building up, it's not really what we wanted from a Batman versus Superman movie. Number 7, Superman 3, the one with Richard Pryor. Alright. If you haven't seen this movie, but you've heard that it's just a Richard Pryor comedy, it's like half. He doesn't completely take up the whole movie where Superman feels like a supporting character. Superman, Clark Kent still feels like the main character. It's just Richard Pryor is part of like the antagonist plot line. Because that's like actually the best parts though, is Clark Kent going back to Smallville, hanging with Lana Lang. And because it is interesting how they were like, they were setting her up to be the new like love interest for Clark. Because, Lois Lane shows up in the very beginning, then she gets out of there, and then she comes back at the very end and meets Lana and sees that her and Clark are like kind of have chemistry, which makes Lois kind of jealous, which would have made for like an interesting fourth Superman movie by the Salkinds, where you would have had like, Lois and Lana kind of going at it or something. So I feel like that was interesting setup. Christopher Reeve, wow, like he really dissed this film. His like acting is very good when he's evil Superman and fighting Clark in that garage, scene. Very well done. Christopher Reeve still is very good, even if the movie isn't great. And we'll talk about the next movie, what the problem is with the Superman 3. It's just overall, like, the plot is stupid with just, like, computers and such, even though I don't think they really know what computers is back then. It's interesting just to watch a movie from the 80s and see what they are doing with computers. It's very interesting. But you really could just think that, like, there could have been something better, because this was going to be, like, apparently it would have been a Superman and Supergirl team up, and I think Brainiac was in there. It was all written by the younger Salkind, and the studio didn't like it. Which that's something I do want. I want a Superman and Supergirl movie. I would like to see those two team up and such. And Brainiac, I think they should just do. I mean, this is the closest thing that we've gotten to a Brainiac, but I think Brainiac is of, like, space origin, alien origin. So what we just have is Richard Pryor and then Vince Vaughn. No, not Vince. No, I think it's not Vince Vaughn. I forgot the actor's name. But I think it's like Robert Vaughn. And he's basically Lex Luthor. He's not Lex Luthor, but if he actually was like the owner of a corporation. Unlike what Gene Hackman was in these movies. So that's all we really got. And I guess I could see it being a letdown after the first two. But it still has its, like, fun, dumb, cheesy moments. So you kind of have to just go into it expecting a bad movie. And it's pretty much fine. Coming in at number 6, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. The one that was made by good old Cannon Films. So, the real problem is that Superman 3 has not the best story, and yet the money that was put into it really shows, and it has great special effects and, like, sets. And Superman 4 kind of has a really good story in there, but the money really wasn't there, because the effects are not good. So the movie with the bad script got the good budget, and the movie with the potential good script didn't get the best effects. And I'm saying potential good script because a lot was cut out of this movie, so we don't really know how good this would have been. But I do think it's better than Superman 3 because I like the story still of like Superman debating if he should interfere with our with human issues. So like this had something interesting, because that's what Christopher Reeve was really pushing for. Because that's another funny part. We complain today about how like actors or the filmmakers are always trying to push their political agendas in films, and it just comes off like they're not really pushing story first. This is just an example though of like the actors' political agendas just get muddled through all like the studio interference, and it's kind of funny how it just happened. Just because Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus just did not know how to produce a big movie. It's just so much fun though. I love the stupid effects. I love Superman and Nuclear Man going at it. I love just seeing Lex Luthor just whatever he's doing with Lenny Luthor, and it's a dumb movie. I can't hate it. I love this one. Like this is a movie that I like to just say it's my favorite Superman movie just because of how stupid it is and how fun it is to watch. I love it despite all of its problems. Number 5, Man of Steel. Again, this is my last time really talking about these movies, well, for a while. But overall, I think the movie is just way too ugly and unpleasing to watch. The shaky cam, I think went a little too far. And I guess Snyder was doing something different, like he didn't want to do this is like the only Snyder film to just not have any slow-mo, I think. Like even Dawn of the Dead has like one slow-mo shot in there. But he wanted to go full realistic, which is why it just doesn't really work. And again, I don't like the look of this movie, which is why, was a big improvement in BVS. That movie actually looks pretty good. Even like, I know like the dark gritty stuff might not work for people, but I think BVS is just a better looking movie. But I do like the story. There's a really good story in there about like Zod's plan about destroying Earth to make it more like Krypton. And it is about Superman again. He has to decide, does he want to, does he want to protect Earth, or does he want to let a race that his own race who accepts him more to continue. I think all that is very interesting, but I think some of the filmmaking choices is muddled here. I wish they didn't do Christopher Nolan's out of order way of filmmaking for the first half. It works fine, I guess, with Batman Begins, because like Batman's origin compared to Superman is a little more deeper than that, because with Superman it's just planet blows up, he goes to Kansas and he discovers that he's an alien and becomes a superhero. That's just how it is. Batman, it's like a little deeper, and I just don't think they needed to do that with this film. I'm fine that it did the origin again, but I don't think they should have done that whole thing again. The out of order thing. For the most part, it's still good. I think Henry Cavill does have a few good moments in this, even though I think there are moments looking back at his Superman, he comes off way too aggressive at times. So that's why like my thoughts on him have kind of dropped down a bit, especially after this is the first time I actually ever watched all these movies together. So I think he was a little too aggressive as Superman, but I think he had good moments, and I think he really wanted the character to work. Michael Shannon actually is a great villain. I love him though. I like the villain stuff. So all of that I like. Everything else, it's a little muddled. Kevin Costner as Pa Kent telling him they should have let the kids die. It's a bit of a stretch for that character. I don't know if that's how it should have been. It's still an interesting movie that I do like watching the Snyder films sometimes. I do quite enjoy them a bit. Number 4, Superman Returns. I have not seen this movie in 5 years, like, you know, in its entirety, which is 5 years ago. During the pandemic, I watched this. And I thought it was very boring back then, but, I don't know, watching it again, I kind of like it more. I don't know, I think I love the size and scale that Bryan Singer wanted to bring back from the Richard Donner film, and I think he did it for, like, he made it feel big, but he really should have had a better plot than, you know, like Man of Steel had. Because that's the thing, I like the filmmaking in this more than Man of Steel. Because I think it's just kind of stupid that Lex Luthor's plan is that he now wants to create he wants to take Kryptonian crystals and make land out of that. Which is so stupid. I mean, his plan in the first one made more sense. He wanted to just wipe out California with new land. It's just... I think that it's so stupid. And I hate saying this, but like, Kevin Spacey is like my favorite Lex Luthor, and I don't like saying that because of Kevin Spacey. And I think Brandon Routh, we haven't gotten enough of him. Okay, I know, yeah, he's on the CW, but I haven't watched the CW stuff. So all I have is this movie to judge him, and I really do wish, like, we would have gotten, like, a better sequel out of this to go more into his character, because I feel like he doesn't have enough lines. And yet, like, when he's good, I think he's really good as both Clark Kent and Superman. Man, he could have been something. And, like, because this, you know, the year before you had Batman Begins, this was the movie to also bring back Superman, like what Batman Begins did. And, like, if this one did really well like Batman Begins, they probably would have actually made the two fight. Like, it really was. It would have been Christian Bale and Brandon Routh. They would have been big. So, yeah. There are things, like, I like, but, I mean, the stuff that doesn't really work, again, is Bryan Singer's repeating of the first Superman. Should have tried to do new stuff. They should have just done Brainiac right off the bat. Just do Brainiac and try to go into, like, how maybe, like, that's what Superman brought back from the 5 years he was out. And I think Kate Bosworth is probably my least favorite Lois Lane. Oh, she's a bitch in this. I don't really like what they did with Lois Lane in this movie, and I don't like her character, and I don't like what she does. I know, like, she kind of gets over it at the end, but I don't really like that direction. But yeah, overall I like the scale, the direction. I love the feel of it all. Well, I mean, I don't really get how the movie's supposed to take place like 5 years after Superman 2, which is like 1980, 81. So you would think he would have tried to make this universe look like it was, you know, like 1985 or 1986, but maybe it had to do with them crossing over with Batman. I don't know. I don't know why he doesn't consistently look like the same Metropolis from the Christopher Reeve stuff. So there you go. I don't really understand that part, but overall I love the scale and feel of it all, and Brandon Routh, I think, could have been a great Superman. Number 3, Superman 2. Which cut? I kind of gotta go with the theatrical cut. I mean, look, I know there are, like, stupid things in it with, like, the comedy that Richard Lester injected, but overall it's just a better connected film to the actual first Superman film, and I just find that it's a more complete film. For those who haven't actually seen the director's cut, the big change that it does is it kind of takes place in an alternate reality, which that alternate reality is that it's a sequel to what the first Superman movie was originally going to be, and that is the nukes that Superman throws up into space by Lex Luthor is what gets Zod, Ursa, and Nam out of the Phantom Zone. And so you really can't watch the first Superman movie and then just go into this one, because then it's going to be so confusing. The only part that I really like about the Donner cut is like the scenes that actually had Marlon Brando in there, because Marlon Brando refused to do anything in the second one. So they were able to get his scenes in there, and there are some like scenes I do like with like Clark and Lois at the Daily Planet, because like in the theatrical cut they just go to this resort at Niagara, and you have like no idea what happened. In this cut, it's like Perry White actually tells them to go there, and then I do like the scene where Lois then tries to prove that Clark is Superman by falling off and falling into the food cart, which is something that I always like saw in the first movie. It was like, why is like the food cart guy in both Superman 1 and 2? And this one kind of answered my question. And since this cut was made after the death of Christopher Reeve, it does have a nice like goodbye to this franchise and to Chris Reeve, because this was, I mean, technically his last movie, even though this was stuff that he filmed years ago. But it's just a nice goodbye to Chris Reeve and the franchise. But then again, there's also moments where they obviously used screen test footage. There's a part where Chris Reeve is suddenly not as buff as he is throughout the first two movies. He is very skinny, and obviously was not trained by Darth Vader stunt actor David Prowse yet. Alright, but back to Superman 2, I just love it because, like I grew up with the first two Superman movies, and I loved this one the most as a kid. I loved Zod, Ursa, and Nam, and Superman fighting them. That really was the best part as a kid, and I do like the jokes, even if, that's not what Richard Donner wanted from the first movie, but, Richard Lester did it. The comedy is not as bad as it is in 3, because I think, they still had, like, that story by Mario Puzo that's probably pretty good working off of, even though I think it's stupid, though, that, like, once Clark gets rid of his powers, he then gets beat up by an older guy. Like, that should have just been, like, that trucker should have just been, like, someone closer to Chris Reeve's age and, like, big as Chris Reeve. That would have, like, helped. I think that part is just kind of stupid. But besides, like, the Ursa, besides, like, Clark's, Kal-El's mom showing up in the holograms, instead of Marlon Brando. Everything else I do like. Gene Hackman, he is great as Lex Luthor in, like, the very few scenes that he's in, because, he leaves during the middle of the movie. But I like the stuff in the beginning and end of the film where he's in. And again, I like the action. It's still, like, fun to watch. And Terrence Stamp as Zod is awesome. He really steals the show. I do kind of wish, like, we had more scenes with Superman and Zod instead of just it being all at the end. But Superman 2, despite its faults, it is a fun movie. Number 2, James Gunn's Superman. I had so much fun with this movie. I love David Cornsweet as Superman. I'm excited to see other films with him as Superman. I think Nicholas Hoult is a great new Lex Luthor that I'm also excited to see more of. I already love the world that James Gunn has created. He's basically doing like what Superman Returns was. It's the modern world, but it has a very like comic booky look to it, which which I've already said Superman Returns. Like, it has a good look, but I think it doesn't fit with the Chris Reeve like Superman films that it's like trying to be a sequel to. But this, what he has, it really works for this new universe that he's already set up by just already explaining that like there's already been metahumans that have been like established. I thought that already was just like a clever idea for just this universe in general, because as a Superman movie, it still works. It doesn't feel like a trailer for other DC stuff. I think Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, were like actual fun additions, and then they didn't feel like setups for like other movies in his universe. It all works. I love his new portrayal of Superman as just this decent guy who's trying to do good in a world that is trying to make him look bad. I love all of that, and God, I'm just excited to see more of what James Gunn has brought to this universe and to see more of this Superman, because I think like he's finally gotten it. It's the best Superman movie since, well, the next one I'm going to talk about. Yeah, I love Richard Donner's Superman, which no other superhero film is like this. No superhero film has the weight and the epic size and feel that this movie has. It doesn't, because that's not what Richard Donner wanted. He didn't want a comic booky film. He wanted this to feel like an epic. Like a movie I saw recently for the first time that I kind of want to compare it to is like Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, because it's just a big epic retelling of a story that everyone knows, and just with a big stacked cast of A-list actors for that time, huge set pieces, big budget. That's how this movie feels. It's got a lot of big actors for the time. Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, Ned Beatty. Those are big actors. Not Christopher Reeve, but it was pretty much a big gamble to cast Christopher Reeve as Superman, who was just an unknown actor. This was like his very first starring role. It really was a gamble to just cast this thespian actor that no one had ever really seen. And he's great. He's still my favorite Superman of all time. Margot Kidder's also still my favorite. Lois Lane. Gene Hackman is just amazing as Lex Luthor. I still hate that he isn't like, he didn't want to go fully bald. But I do love him as an actor, and just rest in peace, man. It's so sad that he went away. Like a lot of these actors from these movies have like passed away. The only ones like they're still alive is the Jimmy Olsen actor who went on to be in both cuts of Justice League, and the actress that plays Miss Teschmacher is still alive, and then John Williams is still thankfully alive. But I love this film and the epic size that Richard Donner really brought, giving us like a true like epic superhero film that nothing really touches it. The effects, most of them still hold up, and I already talked about how the actors are great, and the story and how it depicts Superman makes Superman feel more human than ever. Nothing ever really touches this. I love Superman 1978, and Richard Donner this really was like overall Richard Donner in his career. This was his big epic film, even if I prefer maybe Scrooged or Lethal Weapon over it. This was like the biggest film that he's ever made. And this was a franchise I didn't really like, I love Superman 2, but I always thought Superman 1 was overrated, and I was a kid back then. And now today I have a newfound appreciation for Superman, most of his movies, and I think they're great, and I think Christopher Reeve was an amazing Superman. Brandon Routh had the potential to be great. Henry Cavill, I feel like he was almost there to be a great Superman, and I can't wait to see more of David Cornsweet. I'm excited for just what's happening with James Gunn, and I'm glad Superman's back. I'm glad because I got tired of the Batman stuff, and I needed Superman needed to come back with another movie, because Superman is a character that should never go away, and we always need him no matter what. So thank you guys very much for watching this video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time to talk about another famous superhero group I'm talking about. So, you know what it is. So, stay tuned.